Hi, I'm Kathy,
And I'm Kathy.
and this is
The
the
KC
KC Cafe Radio
Podcast.
Podcast,
Yay! Take episode 2.
episode 2.
Which is, we're going to talk today about musicals.
Yes.
And the first thing I want to talk about musicals is my mom. My mom is the one who's really responsible for me loving musicals so much.
Mine too.
Yeah. She used to watch, like, she loved Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire and all of those classic movie musical stars. And one of my most precious memories with my mom is we used to go every year. We would go to the Muni in St. Louis, which, if you don't know what the Muni is, it's an outdoor musical theater in St. Louis in Forest Park, and I think it's one of the oldest ones in the country. I'm pretty sure it is. And but every year we would go to the Muni because my mom would go there when she was young, and see musicals as well. She couldn't afford to pay for the tickets, so she would sit up in the free area where they let people for free watch them.
Really?
Way back in the back. And so that's where she would go when she was young.
Oh,
but when I got older, the two of us would go every year, and we'd see different musicals. And I have a whole shoebox right here full of playbills from the times that I went with my mom. And now that my mom is gone, I take my husband and my son every year. And it's a tradition in our family to go to the Muni every year and see a musical.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I did get to go see my older sister Pat took me, and I think it was just me, to go see Brigadoon at the Muni. And I can't remember who the main actor was. It was certainly not Gene Kelly, unfortunately. But I fell in love with musical theater when I was in high school. We always did a musical every year in high school, which most high schools do.
Yeah.
And I think I tried out for the musical a couple of different times. I never got a part in the musical because I think it wasn't because I couldn't sing. It was because I wasn't popular.
I think it's in our high school. It had a lot to do with who you were,
right? Who you were related to.
If you were the right family, because
Yeah.
we went to high school in a small town.
Yeah.
And it was very cliquey.
Clicky.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, you know.
I still love musicals. Didn't ruin my love for musicals.
Didn't ruin that. I remember my mom loved watching television shows. She would stay up until, I think one time she said that she was watching TV one night and got up to get a drink and the sun was coming up. Like she didn't even realize that it was so late. So she would stay up really late watching musicals and kind of, that's how I grew my love of musicals. Like one of the first musicals I remember is still iconic to me, probably not to everybody, but Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which when you go back and watch that movie today as an adult, like through an adult's eyes, like these guys kidnapped these 7 girls
Exactly.
and took them up to the mountain, had an avalanche. They caused an avalanche so nobody
couldn't get away.
They couldn't get away and nobody could get them. And I'm thinking, that wouldn't fly today.
No, they probably would not. They would probably be arrested and put in jail. And
it would not. It would turn out so much different today.
Yeah.
But that was one of my favorite musicals, was Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites, is still to this day, is South Pacific. Because it's so relevant to today. If you watch, about people, like the song "You Have to Be Carefully Taught," which is about racism and stuff and being a racist, and
it's about not fitting into what people expect.
Well, and it's also about racism too.
Yeah.
And I think it's very relevant, really very relevant to today as well.
Yeah.
So it's just a brilliant musical, and it stands the test of time. Same thing with West Side Story. It stands the test of time as well. It's got issues that we still deal with today as well, with gangs and violence and things. So those are 2 of my favorites. But if I have to really go to just pure enjoyment for a musical, I've always got to go to my old standard back there, Olivia Newton-John. Grease and Xanadu. And then she also did another one, if you want to check out her all of her musicals. She did another one called Tomorrow, which was released in 1970 before she became famous, which is very kitschy, very British. Just a lot of fun to watch.
It's sort of Doctor Who-ish.
In some ways, like it's very British.
Yeah.
So it's fun to watch. It kind of reminds me of like the James Bond movies of that era. It's kind of, like I said, British.
When I was going back over my list of favorite musicals, I realized that majority of my musicals were in the 60s and the 50s and 60s, which, of course, Gene Kelly was so iconic in musicals. And Judy Garland and Natalie Wood, obviously in West Side Story. But some of the funner ones that I really enjoyed, The Music Man, which was 1962, and then Oklahoma.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Shirley Jones.
One of my favorite songs from Oklahoma, and I always say this because I am like that person who can't say no to volunteering. And so I'll do that at work. I'm like, I'm just a girl who can't say no, because it's in that movie.
Yeah.
And the Music Man, didn't that have, she was the librarian, Marion, the librarian. Oh God, I can't remember who it was, but that was a very iconic movie. And then also, when I was growing up, Disney had a bunch of
Disney was great with
musicals like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was probably one of the first movies I ever saw in the theater, and I think I must have been like 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
And it freaked me out. I mean, it was like, people like talk about Freddy Krueger being like the thing that really scared them as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
The bad guy that was in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, I don't know if any of you guys seen it, but he had this big long nose, and he wore this long cape and a hat, and he was kidnapping the kids and putting them in cages and then taking them to this cave. And it's like, as a kid, as a 5-year-old, I was adopted, and I was always afraid of losing my family all through my childhood in one way or another.
Gosh.
And I was always afraid of being taken away. And so that movie freaked me out. And I love the music to it. Dick Van Dyke was awesome in it.
Yeah.
And it was it's an awesome musical, but that character freaked me out as a kid. So I like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but it freaked me out. Another one I really love a lot is Mary Poppins.
I love Mary Poppins.
Another Dick Van Dyke one.
I was in love with Dick Van Dyke. Yeah. I was in love with everybody, apparently, when I was
You've always been boy crazy.
I was. But yeah, Dick Van Dyke, and then Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
Yeah, and ironically, Mary Poppins is one of my son's favorite movie musicals too.
Oh, really?
He loves that one. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Peter
cool.
Pan and Mary Poppins are Nikolai's favorites.
Some other favorites from the 60s were My Fair Lady. I love how he, she has to learn how to talk properly. Like, I'm always learning how to talk properly myself, so I can relate to her character. And The Sound of Music. The Sound of Music was so iconic for me.
It is iconic.
It is. It is iconic. The Sound of Music. I fell in love with. No. Oh God, the actor's name that played
Christopher Plummer.
Christopher Plummer. Yeah, Christopher Plummer. I was in love with Christopher Plummer. And that was just. I'm a romantic at heart, and actually, that movie. I love that movie. Also, A Hard Day's Night. I mean, the Beatles had a musical. I mean, it was their music. Help and A Hard Day's Night. I love watching those.
Yellow Submarine.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Yellow Submarine. It's an acquired taste.
I think drugs help with that one.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I don't recommend doing drugs and watching that movie, but. And then also some ones in the 70s that I really enjoy was Hair. And actually in the Broadway version of Hair, like people were naked running down the aisles and stuff. And yeah, that they didn't show that on TV. That was probably good. And then Jesus Christ Superstar.
Jesus Christ Superstar.
That's a great musical.
That's one of my favorite musicals.
Did you see that when they did the live version with
a couple years ago?
John Legend?
Yeah, really
and
good.
Sarah Bareilles?
Yeah,
yeah,
that was excellent.
Very good.
I loved it.
And then also Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was a
Mm-hmm.
musical,
Right.
and uh, that was a really good
I
one.
also like Godspell. That was
Oh
really
yeah.
good too. I remember Godspell had tons of songs come out from it.
Hmm.
There's a lot of big hit songs that came out from Godspell, as well as with Jesus Christ Superstar. But
Yeah.
I know when we were at UCM and we would go to the house,
Yeah. UCM House,
UCM house,
which stood for United Campus
right,
Ministry.
United
Yeah.
Campus Ministry. Back then, it was called CMSU, and we went to the UCM house, which
Yeah.
is United Campus Ministry, which is kind of weird now to think about.
And now
But
it's UCM.
but they had this
Yeah.
book that was just full of songs that had the chords in them, and a lot of those songs in there were from Godspell.
Oh really?
Yeah, there's tons of songs in there from Godspell.
Huh. Well, and I think every high school in the 80s did Godspell as their high school musical.
Hmm.
I know at least two friends of mine that went to other high schools did Godspell.
Yeah, and I guess the other, other than Gene Kelly
Yeah.
and Judy Garland, I also love Doris Day
Oh
and
yeah.
all the things that she did as well. She was an
Debbie
amazing.
Reynolds.
Yeah.
Debbie Reynolds. Well, Debbie Reynolds was in Oklahoma.
Was that no, that wasn't Debbie Reynolds. That was Shirley Jones.
Oh, Shirley Jones. I know Debbie Reynolds did some musicals though.
Shirley Jones was in Carousel and Oklahoma.
Was she in American in Paris?
Yeah, Debbie Reynolds was in American
Yeah.
Paris.
Yeah.
That was like her
Gene
first
Kelly.
movie.
Yeah.
That's her first movie, I think. So yeah, just we love the old musicals
Yeah.
and the stuff from the old era as well as the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And, if I go forward in time, I actually went to Broadway and saw Spamalot
Oh, I love
with,
Spamalot.
with Tim Curry and David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. So good.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. So I love that musical. I love Monty Python anyway. And
Yeah.
so that was fun. And then, of course, I love Hamilton. That's another good one.
Hamilton. I have still yet to go see
And
Hamilton.
I like Billy Elliot. That's another good one.
Billy Elliot. I've seen the movie, but
So-
haven't been to the actual
Yeah,
Broadway
I've seen that
play
one. I've
musical.
seen that one live too.
Really?
So yeah, there's a lot of good ones that are out today as well. So
Yeah. I have a friend of mine was just telling me a funny story about Billy Elliot. She was stationed in Europe, and they took their Girl Scouts to see Billy Elliot in
Mhm.
London, and didn't realize it had the F-bomb like a whole bunch of times,
Mhm.
dropping the F-bomb. And so, yeah, well, the parents signed the permission slip, so
This is parents' fault.
yeah, parents.
Speaking
signed
of
the
F
permission.
bombs, Book of Mormon is another good one.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
That's a fun one
Book
too.
of Mormon. I have not seen that one, but is there a movie
Mhm.
for that?
I think so.
I'll have to watch the movie of Book of Mormon. I'm sure that's pretty
And of
good.
course, they did a Broadway version of Xanadu too. Years later.
We saw that when we
Yeah.
went to New York.
Here's my Xanadu mug.
Actually, the guy who
Yeah, we went and saw that when it was on Broadway in New York.
we saw it. It was off Broadway actually,
It was-
and
yeah,
and the main character, the main male character.
Cheyenne Jackson.
Well, he was the understudy, because the main guy was
He
sick.
broke his leg. No, he'd
broke
fallen.
He'd fallen and broken his leg.
ankle or something.
He actually broke a leg,
Mhm.
which you should never do.
But it's a roller skating movie, so it's pretty easy to do.
He actually broke a leg, and so we saw Cheyenne, who's in Call Me Cat.
Mhm.
Yeah,
He's
that-
done tons of stuff, though.
yeah.
He's
We
got
actually
it.
got his autograph. I still have my
I have
program
mine somewhere too. I can't remember
with
what I
that
did with it.
with that autograph. So,
I think it's in my Olivia stuff.
yeah. Yeah, probably is. But and then like in the late 70s, or was it the 80s? Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
That was it was right around 79, 80.
It was
somewhere in
late 70s.
there.
So I'm kind of torn about that, because if you're like a diehard Beatles fan,
It's hard to
you
watch.
don't like the Bee Gees singing Beatles songs.
No.
The falsetto and Barry Gibb really kind of kills it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the
And
Bee
Peter
Gees. I love the
Frampton.
Bee Gees. I love Peter Frampton.
Yeah,
Peter Frampton
but
and
not
Olivia.
together.
Olivia were like the two posters I had on my wall growing up.
Yeah.
But putting them in a Beatles movie with Beatles music, it just did not fly for me.
No.
But I I love both. Like I said, I love all those artists. I just don't like them doing
Together
both of them. Yeah.
doing that. No,
Yeah.
don't, no. So, and then also, there was just a lot of really great Disney and movies that we watched in the 70s and 80s. But, you know, in the 80s, I graduated high school in 84, so didn't really do a lot. And then I got married not too long after in 86.
Well, then they started doing kind of musical animation kind of things, you know,
Right.
like Little Mermaid.
Oh,
and,
yeah, Little Mermaid. Yeah, that was a
you know,
good
all
one.
those. I mean,
Beauty and the Beast.
that's where musicals kind of went from there. Was
They went to
They went
animation.
to animation,
Yeah.
especially with Disney. So.
Well, and we would be remiss not to mention like all the Elvis
Oh yeah.
musicals.
Yeah,
Elvis did
a lot.
so many.
And there was good music in those.
Yeah.
The storylines were not that great, but
No, it was pretty much boy meets girl, girl falls in love with boy, and then boy gets in trouble, and then girls, I don't know, then they get
then
together,
they fall in love.
and then there's a big musical number at the end, and
Right.
he's got his guitar.
It saves the world.
He saves the world.
But here's my big problem with people who will say, I don't like musicals. Okay? Because they're not realistic, or it's stupid. People dancing and singing right in the middle of the... Okay, so you watch fantasy movies?
Yeah.
You watch these action movies that are so unbelievable, the things they do.
Yeah.
But you don't think it's believable that people can burst into song and just in any place?
Have you not seen?
I mean, come on.
What is it when the people will just start crowd like a
Oh.
crowd of people?
Yeah, what are those called? We're old.
Anyway,
I know what you're saying.
yeah, when people do that, you know, that happens. It happens in real life,
It does.
and people record it and put
And
it on their social
wish
channels.
I wish life was a musical, because I think life would
Yeah.
go much easier if it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything always works out in the end.
Exactly.
You know, but
Unless it's West Side Story.
and then not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or well, yeah, there's lots of musicals that didn't work out so well in the end.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that's why I like musicals, because it kind of takes you away for 2 hours.
It's a fantasy.
Yeah, and especially the old musicals. They're very they had that chroma key color, like the very bright, vivid color. They made sure they were wearing like vivid clothes, vivid colors.
Speaking of which, we didn't mention the
Oh.
all-time greatest musical of all time, Wizard
The
of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
So,
yes.
I mean, yeah, Wizard of Oz is probably the pinnacle,
Yeah.
and everything else is below that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But there was another musical. Oh, Annie, Get Your Gun. Or
that's Doris Day.
was that Doris Day?
Yeah.
What now? Debbie Reynolds.
I think.
I want to say Debbie
You might
Reynolds
be
did
thinking
one.
Calamity Jane. I think Calamity
Calamity
Jane was Doris Day.
Doris Day, or not Doris Day. Debbie. There was another Debbie Reynolds one.
Debbie Reynolds. I think that's Debbie Reynolds.
Annie, Get Your Gun.
I think so. And she also did The Unsinkable Molly Brown. Which
That's the one.
I saw
That's
her.
the
I
one.
saw her at the Muni do that.
Oh, you. Oh, really?
I saw Debbie Reynolds at the Muni do that.
Oh,
It was
man.
awesome.
I bet that was awesome.
Yeah.
Love Debbie Reynolds.
Yep.
But anyway, so what is your favorite musical? We'd love to hear you in the comments. Put it down below. Let us know what your favorite musical is, or if you even have one. Or maybe even talk about a movie or a play that you would like to see turned into a musical. Like, for instance, Mamma Mia. What they took. I love the premise of taking all the ABBA songs and making it into a musical, which they have so many
Yeah.
ABBA songs.
They've done a lot of that in the last few years. They'll take an artist and create a musical around it. Like, I think, isn't Cyndi Lauper's Kinky Boots, isn't that sort of taking some of Cyndi Lauper's songs, and they created a musical from it?
And we were just out in Las Vegas, and we went and saw the musical Love.
Oh, yeah. That was great.
Love,
Which
and
was all Beatles music.
it was really good. If you
was
ever have
Cirque
an
du Soleil.
opportunity, Cirque du Soleil. If you ever have an opportunity, it's at the Mirage, and it's called Love by the Beatles.
Yeah,
It's
that
really
was
good.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
and what's
And they do another one with Michael Jackson's music, too.
oh, that's right.
So,
What's the name of that? Do you know?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
But yeah, but they're just amazing things out there to see with musicals and stuff. And yeah, like Kathy said, let us know what your favorite musical is, and if you've got a reason why you don't like musicals and you can top what I said, I'm sorry. I just don't understand people who don't like musicals. It just doesn't make sense to me. So if you can give me a good argument why you don't like musicals, then I'd like to hear that as well.
But yeah, let us know, and we will be back to talk about another subject next week. Do we know what we're talking about next week?
Not yet. We'll come up with something.
It'll be in the notes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. And this is Kathy
And Kathy
at the Casey Cafe
Radio
Podcast. Have a good night.